Welcome to GripeCast with your host, Alex Hernandez. This show is dedicated to consumer technology news and pop culture. GripeCast is owned by TECHAERIS. Visit TECHAERIS.com for the latest tech reviews, news, entertainment, and pop culture. Now sit tight, the show's about to begin. All right, welcome to the least listened to podcast on the internet. This is GripeCast episode 16, and I'm jumping right into this. I am unscripted today. It was a long weekend, Memorial Day weekend here in the States, and we had a good time. Did some cooking out, family time, did some yard work and some housework, and I am really tired and sore. Really was not going to do this podcast today. I was going to wait. But, I said, why not? Let's fire the camera up and just wing it. So here we are. And what do you know? What are we talking about today? What do you think we're talking about? We're talking about Google. Google, man. This is just going to be, we'll change it from the GripeCast to the GoogleCast, right? There's a lot going on, all right? So we already know everything. You guys should... If you've been listening to my podcast, you know what's going on with Google search. You know what's going on with the algorithm. You know what's going on with the SGE and their LLM and the AI, Gemini, and everything else that's happening, and how it's affected us as an independent website. So it was rather interesting and rather surprising this weekend that this article came out from iPullRank, from Mike King. He wrote this article entitled Secrets from the Algorithm. Google Search's internal engineering documentation has leaked. This is huge, people. This is huge. If you know anything about Google, you know that Google search algorithm has been a very, very tightly kept secret in the industry. And I mean, people have been trying to figure out Google's algorithm for years. And Mike King apparently has some of the documentation, some of the engineering documentation from the Google algorithm. So that is massive. It's a big deal. And the thing is, and I will link to iPullRank down below in the show notes. The thing is, this is it's a lot of data, and it came out a day or day and a half ago, however long it was, 2 days ago. I haven't even gotten through all of it. There's so much information, so much data here. It's a lot. But we're just going to go through this a little by little. Maybe I'm going to break it down and read through it with you, and maybe talk a little bit about what my thoughts are concerning this data leak, this documentation. And I'm going to say this too, that Google has not responded to this. I think it's been 2 days now. They have not responded to this. Actually, let me get the date over here. Let me see. Yeah, 2 days. So it was posted on the 27th. But they have not responded to this article and to these claims from iPullRank. But a lot of interesting data in here that I'm still getting through. So let's just jump into it. Mike King writes, Google, if you're reading this, it's too late. Okay, cracks his knuckles. All right, yeah, me too. Let's get into it, right? He says, let's get right to it. Internal documentation for Google Search Content Warehouse API has leaked. Google's internal microservices appear to mirror what Google Cloud Platform offers, and the internal version of documentation for the deprecated Document AI Warehouse was accidentally published publicly to a code repository for the client library. The documentation for this code was also captured by an external automated documentation service. So, sounds like this API was not supposed to be, this documentation was not supposed to be, obviously not supposed to be published publicly, but it was. So someone was able to scrape it, and I'm sure that it's no longer where they originally found it. I'm sure that it got pulled, but someone was able to scrape it and save it. So now we have the benefit of having a small glimpse into what Google and their search algorithms are all about. And what I'll also say is, if you go on to X, you'll see a lot of industry experts, people that work in SEO and website building, will confirm that much of what Google has said in the past was misinformation, let's say. Or let's just say they lied, because that's what they did. So anyway, back on to Mike King here. He says, based on the change history, this code repository mistake was fixed on May 7th, but the automated documentation is still live. In efforts to limit potential liability, I won't link to it here, but because of all the code in the repository was published under the Apache 2.0 license, anyone that came across it was granted a broad set of rights, including the ability to use, modify, and distribute it in any way. I have reviewed the API reference docs and contextualized them with some other previous Google leaks and the DOJ antitrust testimony. I'm combining that with the extensive patent and white paper research done for my upcoming book, The Science of SEO. While there is no detail about Google's scoring functions in this documentation I've reviewed, there's a wealth of information about data store for content, links, and user interactions. There are also varying degrees of descriptions, ranging from disappointingly sparse to surprisingly revealing, of the features being manipulated and stored. Again, the primary word there being manipulated. You'd be tempted, well, going back to Mike here, you'd be tempted to broadly call these ranking factors, quote, but that would be imprecise. Many, even most of them, are ranking factors, but many are not. What I'll do here is contextualize some of the most interesting ranking systems and features, at least that I was able to find in the first few hours of reviewing this massive leak, based on my extensive research and things that Google has told/lied to us about over the years. Lied is harsh, but it's the only accurate word to use here. While I don't necessarily fault Google's public representatives for protecting their proprietary information, I do take issue with their efforts to actively discredit people in the marketing, tech, and journalism world who have presented reproducible discoveries. My advice to future Googlers speaking on these topics: sometimes it's better to simply say, we can't talk about that. Your credibility matters, and when leaks like this and testimony like the DOJ trial come out, it becomes impossible to trust your future statements. That is a very good point. Google has actively railed against people who would go against their, basically, Google is, hey, we are the king. You don't mess with us. Don't. So, like Mike says here, it's better just to just say, hey, we can't talk about that, instead of being defensive and attacking other people's credibility. So he goes on with the caveats here. We're going to skip the caveats. I'll just read real quick the main points. Limited time and context. He didn't have a lot of time to go through everything with the holiday weekend. No scoring functions. Likely the first of several posts. This appears to be current information. I'll read that one. He says, this appears to be current information. As best as I can tell, the leak represents the current active architecture of Google search content storage as of March of 2024. And then he kind of talks a little bit there. So here he says, there are 14,000 ranking features and more in the docs. There are 2,596 modules represented in the API documentation with 14,014 attributes that look like this. And so he, if you're not used to reading code, some of the stuff that he's got posted here that's all gobbledygook to you. There's some of it's gobbledygook to me. I am familiar with this language here, though some of it is still kind of hard to understand. But like I said, I'll link to this article so you can look at the screenshots that he has posted here. He goes on to say the modules are related to components of YouTube, assistant, books, video search, links, web documents, crawl infrastructure, and internal calendar system, and the People API. Just like Yandex, Google systems operate on a monolithic repository, or a monorepo, and the machines operate in a shared environment. That means that all the code is stored in one place, and any machine on the network can be part of any of Google's systems. And then he talks about the outlines of the API docs. Okay, here we go. The API docs reveal some notable Google lies. Google spokespeople have gone out of their way to misdirect and mislead us on a variety of aspects of how their systems operate in an effort to control how we behave as SEOs. I won't go as far as calling it social engineering because of the loaded history of that term. Let's instead go with gaslighting. Google's public statements probably aren't intentional efforts to lie, but rather to deceive potential spammers, and many legitimate SEOs as well, to throw us off the scent of how to impact search results. So basically, what he's saying there is that Google's lied to search engine optimization professionals and to website owners and publishers like me. So, like, I'm a small independent website owner, and so I'm my own SEO guy. So a lot of the bigger websites and a lot of and some independent websites use hired SEO personnel like Mike to optimize their websites for search. And so what Mike's saying is that Google was knowingly gaslighting everyone under the guise of they want to deter spammers or deter SEOs or people who are trying to take advantage of Google. But that's no excuse. All right, so he says, continue on with Mike. He says, below, I present assertions from Google employees alongside facts from the documentation with limited commentary so you can judge for yourself. Quote, we don't have anything like domain authority. Google spokespeople have said numerous times that they don't use domain authority. I've always assumed that this was a lie by omission and obfuscation. By saying that they don't use domain authority, they could be saying they specifically don't use Moz's metric called domain authority, obviously. They could also be saying they don't measure the authority of importance for a specific subject matter or domain as it relates to a website. This confusion by way of semantics allows them to never directly answer the question as to whether they calculate or use site-wide authority metrics. Gary Eels, an analyst at the Google search team who focuses on publishing information to help website creators, has repeated this assertion numerous times. And then he has a post from X on where Gary Eels has responded. And Gary's not alone. John Mueller, a search advocate for who coordinates Google Search's relations, declared in this video, we don't have website authority score. And then he links to a video which you guys can watch on your own. So what he's saying here is that Google's always said that they don't rank websites on domain authority. A domain authority, in other words, is how often is that domain visited? You know, let's take TECHAERIS. You know, let's say we get 10 million views in a year, or 20 million views in a year. But let's say Forbes gets 300 million views in a year. Well, they're going to rank higher because they have more views. So that's how Google ranks your domain. So the more views you have, the more domain authority you have. Okay. Mike goes on to say, in reality, as part of the compressed quality signals that are stored on a per document basis, Google has a feature they compute called site authority. And then he has a screenshot here that shows site authority, type integer, default, nil. And this is code again. So part of the code is site authority. Mike goes on to say, we do not know specifically how this measure is computed or used in the downstream scoring functions, but we now know definitively that it exists, and it is used in the Q ranking system. Turns out Google does indeed have an overall domain authority. Okay, so then he goes on, he puts a quote, says, quote, we don't use clicks for rankings. Let's put this one to bed for good. Testimony from, I don't know how to pronounce that name, and I'm not going to try. So testimony from PN, let's just call him PN, in the DOJ antitrust trial And he has a link here. All these blues are links, so make sure you guys click those when you guys are reading through this so you can see his sources. Recently revealed the existence of the Glue and NavBoost ranking system. NavBoost is a system that employs click-driven measures to boost, demote, or otherwise reinforce ranking in web search. So what click ranking is, Google, they've denied that they don't use clicks for ranking websites. So the more clicks you get, the better rank you're going to get. And apparently this is another lie from Google. So I'm going to skip through some of this here. We also know, Mike goes on to say, we also know that clicks as a measurement of success is a best practice in information retrieval. We know that Google has shifted toward machine learning driven algorithms, and ML requires response variables to refine its performance. Despite the staggering evidence, there's still confusion in the SEO community due to the misdirection of Google's spokespeople and the embarrassingly complicit publication of articles across the search marketing world that uncritically repeat Google's public statements. Gary Ills has addressed this click measuring issue many times. In one instance, he reinforced what Google search engineer Paul Haar shared in his 2016 SMX West Talk, saying that using clicks directly in rankings would be a mistake. And then he has a quote there with a highlight. Later still, he famously used his platform to disparage Rand Fishkin, founder and CEO of Moz, and a longtime SEO practitioner, saying that dwell time, CTR, whatever Fishkin's new theory is, they are generally made up crap. In reality, NavBoost has a specific module entirely focused on click signals. So again, he's going in through here and he's showing what you're seeing on these screenshots is from the Google documentation. This is more code showing bad clicks, good clicks, longest clicks, unsquashed clicks, which I have no clue what that is, unsquashed impressions, unsquashed last longest clicks. So it's showing the code for each of these actions. So, which Google has said that they don't do this, but it's in the documentation. So, so he goes on. There's quite a bit more, and like I said, this thing is massive. So make sure you click on the link below and take your time at some point to read it if you're interested. If you're not interested, I'm sure you've already clicked away from this podcast. And if you are still listening, thank you. I know a lot of this is technical, and a lot of the verbiage in here is you may not totally get the whole gist of it, but doing my best to read through and just kind of explain as I go. So we'll skip through the rest of that because we now know that they use click as a ranking factor. So quote, there is no sandbox. Google spokespeople have been adamant that there is no sandbox, that websites are segregated to based on age or lack of trust signals. In a now deleted tweet, John Mueller responded to a question about how long it takes to be eligible to rank, indicating that there is no sandbox. So John Mueller says there is no sandbox. In the per doc data module, the documentation indicates an attribute called host age that is used specifically to sandbox fresh spam and serving time. Turns out there is a sandbox after all. Who knew? Okay, so we have a sandbox, and we have click ranking and domain ranking. Everything that they've said they don't do, they're doing. That's what this is, and it's curious to us. It's curious to a lot of people that Google has not. Again, I said this at the beginning of the podcast. They have not come out to comment on this, deny it, or say anything. I'm sure it won't be until next week, or even I don't know how long. But this is, a lot of the stuff I've been talking about in the past, I've said, hey, Google's going to be able to brush this under the rug. This particular leak, I don't know if they're going to be able to brush this under the rug. So he goes on to say with a quote, we do not use anything from Chrome for ranking. Matt Cutts has previously been quoted as saying that Google does not use Chrome data as part of organic search. More recently, John Mueller reinforced this idea. But he shows a piece of code from the documentation showing site-level Chrome views. So one of the modules related to page quality scores features a site-level measure of views from Chrome. Another module that seems to be related to the generation of site links has a Chrome-related attribute as well. So he goes on, Google spokespeople are well-meaning, but can we trust them? The quick answer is not when you get too close to the secret sauce. And, you go back into, there's account on X called Google Search Liaison. And this is a person, his name is Danny Sullivan, and he is the liaison for website owners and SEOs between Google and them. And he's also been very shady when it comes to his answers and lack thereof. So he's absolutely right here. The quick answer is not when you can't trust the Google spokespeople when you get too close to their secret sauce. And again, I'm going to read what Mike says here, and I agree with him. I harbor no ill will against the folks I've cited here. I'm sure they all do their best to provide support and value to the community within the bounds that they are allowed. So that's understandable. And then he goes on to the architecture of Google's ranking systems. Conceptually, you may think of the Google algorithm as one thing, a giant equation with a series of weighted ranking factors. In reality, it's a series of microservices where many features are pre-processed and made available at runtime to compose the SERP. That's the search engine results page. So when you do a search on Google, that's what a SERP is. You say, let's say iPhone 15 Pro Max review, and then boom, there's your search engine result page. That's the very first page. Based on the different systems referenced in the documentation, there may be over 100 different ranking systems. Assuming these are not all the systems, perhaps each of the separate systems represent a ranking signal. And maybe that's how Google gets to the 200 ranking signals they often talk about. In Jeff Dean's Building Software Systems at Google and Lessons Learned talk, he mentioned that earlier iterations of Google sent each query to 1,000 machines to process and respond in sub 250 milliseconds. He also diagrammed an early version of the system architecture abstraction. The diagram illustrates the super root is the brain of Google search that sends queries out and stitches everything together at the end. So he shows here, you have super root and then the cache servers, and he has the ad system front end web server. Here's the web, and then they break down. Super root breaks down to images, So this is just imagine the interface of Google, and here's what you have. You have your images, local news, web, video, blogs, and books. So that kind of represents what the front page of Google looks like, or when you get a result. All right, back to Mike. He says, distinguished research engineer Mark Norgic in his recent generative information retrieval presentation showcased an abstracted model of Google Search with its RAG system. The diagram illustrates a series of different data stores, servers that process the various layers of results. And then he shows the architecture of retrieval here. And I'm not going to go over this in detail here because this stuff here is kind of in depth, and I think it will behoove you to really go and read the article and look through each one of these graphics. So let's move down and take a look at some of the other stuff here. So he talks about crawling, indexing, rendering, ranking. Oh, here we go. What are twiddlers? So I think this is one of the ones I was kind of interested in as well, twiddlers. There's limited information online about twiddlers in general, so I think it's worth explaining them here so we can better contextualize the various boost systems that we encounter in the docs. Twiddlers are re-ranking functions that run after the primary A-scorer search algorithm. They operate similar to how filters and actions work in WordPress, where what is displayed is adjusted right before being presented to the user. Twiddlers can adjust the information retrieval score of a document or change the ranking of a document. A lot of the live experiments and the name systems we know about are implemented this way. As this ex-Googler demonstrates, they are quite important across a variety of Google systems. And then he quotes, or he has a screenshot of Didi, or Didi. I can't pronounce that screen name. He is an ex-Googler, and he says, quote, one time I made a change to the API definition of superroot the service that powers Google search to disable twiddlers without realizing all of YouTube search depended on it, and I brought down YouTube search for a couple hours. So twiddlers can offer category constraints, meaning diversity can be promoted by specifically limiting the type of results. For instance, the author may decide to only allow 3 blog posts in any given SERP. This can clarify when ranking is lost because this can clarify when ranking is a lost cause based on your page format. When Google says something like Panda was not part of the core algorithm, this likely means it's launched as a twiddler as a re-ranking boost or demotion calculation. Presumably, any of the functions with a boost suffix operate using the twiddle framework. Here are some of the boosts identified in the docs: nav boost, quality boost, real-time boost, web image boost. Key revelations that may impact how you do SEO. And then he goes into so if you're not familiar with this world, Google, as with everything, they like to name things. And there's I remember working out at Fermi National Lab, and the admins there would name their servers, and this is kind of the same thing. So their updates, they name, this was the what they're talking about, Panda here is one of the updates, one of the major updates to the algorithm's core update. So they call it the Panda update. I'm not going to read through this because this was basically what this is saying. This whole part of this article saying is that the Panda update was more than what Google told us it was. It was far more impactful than they let on. Let's just put it that way. There's one section here that I really wanted to okay. Demotions. There are a series of algorithmic demotions discussed in this documentation. Yes, this is it. All right. So this is the Panda update now. So and what this is real important for us because this is about the time that I started seeing some volatility in my searches, in my traffic, and I think that we were hit by this partially by this update, and then reinforced with the helpful content update and the reviews update, and that's why we've suffered on this. So demotions. There are a series of algorithmic demotions discussed in the documentation. Descriptions are limited, but they are worth mentioning. We've already discussed Panda, but the remaining demotions I've come across are anchor mismatch. When the link does not match the target site it's linking to, the link is demoted on the calculations. As I've said before, Google is looking for relevance on both sides of a link. So anchor mismatch means like, let's say I write an article about the latest TCL phone, and I link out to, I don't know, glasses. Let's say there's a glasses website, and I link to a glasses website on my smartphone article. Well, it doesn't quite match, right? It's just a link to another website that doesn't really, and it doesn't really, it's not relevant. So that's what a mismatch link is. So, let me see here. As a SERP demotion, that's what this next one is here. A signal indicating demotion based on factors observed from the SERP suggestion potential user excuse me, let me reread this. A signal indicating demotion based on factors observed from the SERP suggesting potential user dissatisfaction with the page as likely measured by clicks. My mouth is not working, obviously. So a signal indicating demotion based on factors observed from the SERP suggestion potential user dissatisfaction with the page as likely measured by clicks. So what that means is that they are demoting pages or websites that are not getting the clicks or are getting click-aways. Let's say you click into my website and all you do is read the first 2 sentences and then you click away. Well, the less time you spend on my website when you click a link, the more punishment I'm going to get from Google. So when you click in to our website, it's helpful to be there and read the article and maybe click onto another one and another one. That really helps pull us up in the rankings. So nav demotion is presumably, this is a demotion applied to pages exhibiting poor navigation practices or user experience. So the user experience, basically, the navigation. I think we do. I think we have a good. I love our website. I think that we've done a good job designing it, and I think it works great. Exact match domains demotion. We're going to just skip that one. The one I really want to read here is product review demotion. This is it right here. Product review demotion. This is what we do. We do product reviews, and we've done product reviews for the past almost 12 years, 11 and a half years, whatever it's been. He says, there's no specific information on this, but it's listed as a demotion and probably related to 2023's recent product reviews update. So this is where I think that we especially got hit. This product reviews update came down the pike, I think, in 2023, November time frame. And then that's when I really saw some volatility, some real dips in traffic. So they are demoting product review sites, which I am not entirely sure why. But we've been hit by that, and they're demoting these sites. And yeah, it's hurt us really bad. And it's not, I'm confused as to why they would do that. So, and then he goes on to the next one, location demotions, porn demotions. That's obvious one. He says this one is obvious. Other link demotions, and he'll talk about links. And I'm not going to read this entire thing, but goes on to say links are still important. Google has come out and said that backlinks are not as important as before, but that's a lie. Indicating tier impacts link value, link spam velocity. There is just so much in this document. I really would love to sit here and talk to you for a few hours to go over this in detail, but I just encourage you to check it out at iPullRank, and I'll link it below. Hopefully I didn't bore you on this podcast. All this kind of stuff is really outside the purview of you guys, of the normal audience. Most of you really don't even really care about this stuff. I just ask that while you don't understand what's happening and the details behind everything, just know that what Google is doing is hurting us and hurting other sites that you might like. And in that, I think that getting you guys behind us by clicking our links, by searching for our articles, by staying on the website for 5, 6, 10, 20 minutes, whatever, and clicking around and exploring the website, all that stuff really helps us. And all this other stuff, all of this data that I've been reading and all this stuff that I've been looking through is irrelevant to you guys. I think that the primary thing that what I want you to take away from this podcast is to know that, and I've said this before, you guys are our audience. My audience is my search engine now. You guys are the ones that I need to rely on to share, to like, to bookmark, to help push us back out into in front of people's eyes. Without you guys, right now we're gimped with what Google's been doing. I'm very grateful to Mike King and iPullRank for posting this very, very lengthy article and publishing the documentation, because this was really needed. And mainstream publications are talking about it too right now. And it's hopefully going to rattle Google's cages, because they need their cage to be rattled. They are they're acting like the kings of the internet, and hopefully we'll bring them down a notch here, and hopefully we can get the search engine that you guys are familiar with back in working order. because the way it is now, it's pretty much broken. And there's a lot of evidence for that. So anyway, I'm going to stop there. I really appreciate you guys listening to this podcast. If you've listened all the way through, I appreciate you 100%. If you guys, even if you scrub through a little bit, all of this is important stuff. It's important to me because this is my livelihood. And being able to try to help you guys understand what it is we do and how we operate is important. So, I really appreciate you guys listening. Today's podcast was just unscripted and one topic, and that's unusual for me, and probably a little lengthier than I want it to go. But man, I could go hours for this on this topic, and maybe someday I'll do a live stream or something and just go over this document as I see it. But anyway, glad to be back this after this Memorial Day weekend. A little tired, and hopefully you guys have all recovered from the holiday, and hopefully your weeks are going well. Make sure you take care of each other. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, comment, interact with us, interact with me. You can find me on X, you'll find me on MeWe. Those are the two major platforms that I'm on, where you can get a hold of me, is on MeWe and on X. Over on MeWe, it's at TECHAERIS. You have to have an account to be able to post and read over there, but it's at TECHAERIS. Over on X, it's at DA Alex Hernandez. And it's TECHAERIS as well there on X, but I usually post and interact on my own personal account. So check us out there. Check me out there. Make sure you like, subscribe, and do all the things that help us out. And make sure you also take care of each other. Take care of yourselves. Be blessed. Be kind. And we will talk to you on the other side.